We are now live for everyone. We are here in the room with the participants. This is one more activity of the 27th World Congress of Architects 2021. I have the honor of being the General Commissioner. For the first time in history, the Congress is taking place in a digital format due to this global trauma, this pandemic that stops us from doing what we Brazilians most like, which is to receive all of you with open arms. On the other hand, this format, this digital format, also creates important opportunities. We are in the third month of a Congress that would only have 5 days, and it became 5 months with participants, with more participants than any other World Congress of the story of our association. I'm Igor Devech. I'm an architect, urbanist, professor, and currently one of the co-presidents of the Institute of Architects of Brazil here in Rio. This is the consolidation live of the reflections of the debates in this third week dedicated to the third theme of the Congress, changes, and we have participants of the debates that we shared during the week. I welcome you all. I thank you all for your presence. And soon I'm going to be calling our mediator, who was especially invited to this event, to introduce you. And if you were not with us this week, this content is always on the platform and it will be there to the end of the week, and you'll be able to access these debates. Before this, I would like to tell you that there is a main theme, all the names, just one world, Architecture 21, and our committee has unfolded this. Fragilities and inequalities, diversity and mixture, changes and uh, transitory and flows. We started this ever since March. This is a collective construction, sharing relevant dialogues in this Congress space. I would like to welcome all of you who are here with us live. And I ask those of you who are directly watching in YouTube for you to join the site of the Congress, www.UIA2021RIO.ARC, ARQ, and log in to join through the platform of exclusive contact so that you can ask questions to the guests through the chat. Write your names down, write your countries down. I'm sure people are already doing that on the YouTube chat and the platform chat. And do this when you start your questions so that we know who we're talking to. I'd like to remind you that all of you can choose the English channel, you can choose the Spanish channel, you will have interpretation. And those of you who have still not put your names down, you are participating in a small sample of everything, of all the content, the round tables, everything you have. So I'd like to ask you all to join us in this exclusive platform. The debates that we've published ever since March remain here for 1 week, and then they go onto this platform. So now you know the quality of the lectures that only the 27th Congress can have. It's a virtual program, it's extensive, it's 3 languages, it's open to all the continents, and it'll be available for everyone during 2 years. So if you haven't yet enrolled, if you haven't yet registered, you are missing an opportunity to access all of this. In this platform, there's room to network, and this content will be available to those of you who bought the digital invitation. Now, this week, you can guarantee your discount on the site. As I said, www.uia2021RIO.org. Just register, fill out, and at the end, put promo 10 to get 10% discount when you purchase your ticket. Don't leave it for later. It's only to the end of this week, so put your name down. And let's move on to the debates today. In our live today, we have the honor to receive a companion of our Institute of Architects to mediate our conversation, which is Rosella. She's an architect, she's a doctor in urbanism for the University of São Paulo. She has the elaboration of several plans, director plans, and she works in the municipality town hall. She's a member of the Institute of Architects and also of the Architect Council of Brazil. I'm now then going to give the floor to Hoelzel, who is going to introduce our guest for today. So very much welcome, Hoelzel, and thank you very much for being with us. Well, good morning, everywhere. Thank you. Thank you, Igor, for your invitation. And it is a pleasure to be here with you, especially within this discussion, which is so important, which is about changes and occurrences. I think this is a very instigating topic, and I would like to invite everyone. There are 3 episodes which are free for everyone, and from these episodes, we have some representatives that have been in this debate that we brought here for this final conversation. We also have, as Igor just said, several archi-talks on the platform. So we have a lot of material for discussion about the changes that we are going through during these times. These 3 episodes, the first one is the emergence or the occurrence of the new architect. And Steven Benevides is here today as a representative of this debate that took place with Janie Hall of Great Britain. And he's an architect. He talks from Quito. And soon I will ask him to introduce this conversation. In the second episode about climate changes, we have Luis Alberto Oliveira, who's here. He's a physicist, he's a director in, and he worked for a decade as director of the Museu do Amanhã in Rio, and he brings a lot of questions about unexpected events that are here to influence our life. One of the people that have also talked about climate changes together with Igor, who is here, and this is one of the most intriguing debates that I've watched during the last time and the last weeks, and also technological changes and social changes. I suggest that you go in to listen because it's also extremely interesting. All these lectures, they bring all these debates, they have something in common about changes. Luis Alberto, he's talked about the concept of unexpected events to the day-to-day life. Our time is marked by the intensity of occurrences and the speed in which these happen, the interrelationship between people, the connectivity. All this is so positive that it opens space for a series of frailties and also a series of occurrences which are unexpected. If this is something that could be theoretical and evident in the scientific discussions, from 1 year to now, it is clearly understood by each one of us that listens to this debate And the experience of the pandemic itself, these events, the quick events, people that know how to deal with the new qualities of a created mind that acts in the with the architect to solve problems. So I would like to request to Luis Alberto for him to talk about these unexpected events that changes everything, everything becomes relative, and the speed of the transformation so that we architects can reflect about our role in this context of changes. On the other hand, another change, which is in the environment which is being built, and these changes, this is something of the tonic of the conversation of Stephen Benevides. And at the moment of this debate of the architecture, ephemeris architect, and reflecting that the collective had practices of architecture working together with the community. Steban told us in a light tone, because lightness is one of the qualities that is part of the lessons of the 21st century. Esteban said that he sees with good eyes that whatever has been built would disappear in 100 years. This consciousness that life is something in mutation, that transforms us and that makes us rethink about perennity and how long things last in architecture. I understand that he has included this architecture in a natural process of transformation, something degradable that returns to the cycle of nature after its function has ended. Now, perhaps because they use local techniques that are known by the community where they work. So, in this debate, Steben, talk about the ways of working together with a community. This is something extremely interesting for us architects because we have a lot of experience in Latin America and how this is inserted in the way of thinking of architecture. So I'm going to give the floor to Louise and then to Estevan for our debate. Good morning to everyone. It's wonderful to be with you again. The liking of architecture and the goodwill has been growing in my life. A few years ago, there was a survey of what would be the most important invention during the last 2,000 years. And there are several suggestions that go from the thermos flask until up to the uh, cryptography, but the press, Gutenberg's press, was the winner. It started with the Chinese, but it's become, and the reason is other inventions that resulted from this invention of the press. So when the distribution of ideas and emulations, this was responsible for more and more innovations and inventions. So one of these would be the press. So with this argument, the most important invention of history perhaps was the cities, due to the same reason, the number of innovations that cities brought. What do cities do? They distribute human flows, symbolic, material, digital, and when this distribution is done, this channeling is done, certain flows and rhythms can be synchronized, can be adjusted, can be creating a new form about existence ever since breathing, reproduction, circulation. So cities are a spatial structure that have the temporal machine function. They have cycles. And during the last 10,000 years, which are the times of, but we've found that the written language, astronomy, everything allowed due to the to what cities have brought. For example, leisure, contemplative, creative leisure. The fundament for these innovations, this establishment of these rhythms, everything synchronized, which also today has a global reach, literally, the the environmental stability. So the fact that from 14 years up to now, the climate locally and globally has followed stable standards. And this is what from now on we citizens will no longer have. That means different from what the poet would say, we will not be the same, we will not be like our parents. We will be in a world in where these large environmental movements, these cycles, will all be accelerating a lot. This change takes place in terms of decades and generations, but in terms of natural regimes, it's very quick. It's something very, the decisive fact of our times in terms of civilization is that from now on, we and our descendants will live in an environment which is changing a lot, very different to the last 10,000 years. So, by the same token, in this integrated culture that we practice today, this entity, this civilization, will have to deal with this transformation, with these changes in its natural state. So it is the responsibility of the thinkers and of the architects, of the way of organizing materials, to reflect about this fact that from now on, everything will be different. So, what we thought was certain, what we thought was habitual, everything will have to be done and undone for us to incorporate a number of unexpected facts that comes from that will populate our lives. So we will have to adapt to this transforming times. This is an experience that is going to take decades, generations, but it's very important for us to understand that there will not be any return on it. The cities will have to develop resilience qualities, adaptation qualities, and the horizon today of 100 years is a new horizon. And due to this accelerated change of what we call nature, I understand that the architects and they have to reflect about these new circumstances in which human life will exist. And we're going to have to invent, we're going to have to innovate so that we can have this possibility of adapting to these circumstances. We're going to have to be good artists. For sure, a lot of creativity. We have, it's what we're calling thinkers of the space and time. We will have to be very creative. We will have to be very flexible to deal with these events in the speed that they will be coming. So, Esteban, what do you have to say to us coming from Quito?
Oi, bom dia a todos e
Good
todas. Eu
morning
queria
to everyone. I want to
agradecê-los, em
thank you
primeiro
for
lugar,
the
pelo
invite,
convite.
but I'm
Eu
going to
vou
continue
continuar em
in
espanhol.
Spanish.
Eu falo
Sometimes I
português,
think
mas não
I
é tão
speak
bom assim.
Portuguese,
Então eu
but
vou
not so.
voltar para o meu espanhol original.
So, about the
Com relação às
questions
perguntas
that
feitas pela
you've
professora
asked,
Rossella e
and
também
also
sobre
about
as
what
conversas com o professor Luiz
Luis
Alberto, eu acho
Alberto
que tem a
said, I
ver
think that we have to
na
think
nossa
in our
reflexão sobre
reflection how
como
we
encarar nossa
are going to
profissão
look at our
e encarar
profession.
o mundo. Quando eu
And
me
when I
referia
was
a que
talking
nossos trabalhos
about
não
that our
sejam
work
para
is
sempre
not
permanentes, o
forever, or
resultado
the
das
results
nossas
of what we
obras
do does not have a consequence
não terão uma
which
consequência muito
lasts for so
longa.
long.
A gente tem muitas vezes, a gente acha que vai durar muito tempo, mas não vai durar.
We
Nós
talk
falamos
from a
sobre um lugar,
place,
eu não sei se eu devo chamar, bom,
we
é de
take
tirar a
ourselves
gente
from a
daquele lugar
place where we're
antagônico,
the main
onde muitas
actors.
vezes a figura do arquiteto está
And
colocada. Quando a
when
gente
we
vê
work
maneiras
with
de
these
encarar as
ways of working with
colaborações
the
com as comunidades,
collaboration
também a
of
gente faz a mesma
communities, we
coisa. A
also
gente tenta sair
leave this place
desse lugar
where
onde,
we
usualmente, a
usually
figura do arquiteto é
have the
colocada
architect as
como
the main
protagonista.
actor.
E
And
também,
when I
quando eu
hear
escutei as reflexões do
what
Luiz Alberto,
Professor
eu acho
Alberto
que
is
ele também
saying,
entende,
I
ou
believe
pelo menos
that
sugere, que nem tudo
mm,
gira ao redor do ser humano.
not
E o fato de
everything
que a
is
gente não
around the human
esteja no
being,
centro de
and the
tudo não
fact that
significa que não somos importantes.
I
Eu acho
think that
que
even
o
the
mesmo
same
acontece
thing
com a nossa
happens
maneira
with
de
the
entender a
way that
arquitetura. O
we
fato de que
understand
nossa figura como
architecture,
arquitetos não
the
esteja
fact
no
that we're
centro
not in the
e
center of the
que
world
todas as
and
decisões que tomamos não
also the
giram em
center of
torno da gente,
decisions.
não
This does
tira
not
o
um,
fato da
change the
contribuição que a nossa
fact
profissão
of
possa dar, nem
the importance of our
também
profession, and it
tira
also
o fato de
does
que as
not
decisões passam por
change
um
that the
filtro
decisions
técnico
come
da
from a
disciplina da
technical
arquitetura.
filter, and the way of
A forma
dealing
de encarar
with
a durabilidade dos nossos
the
projetos
how long our
responde ao
projects
nosso pensamento
last,
mais aberto ao mundo e
and
o que
this
a responsabilidade
makes
que
us
leva
responsible
às
for
decisões
the
que tomamos.
decisions
Também em
we
frente à
take,
comunidade, isso acontece.
but
Mas, além disso,
also
com a
I
comunidade, acho que
think there's
acontece alguma
something
coisa
special that
especial.
happens,
Colaborar
which
com
is to
eles
collaborate
é uma
is a
resposta
response that we give
perante a falta de acesso
with the
que
lack of
temos
access
com
that we
relação à
have
informação.
to information. What I
Quer
mean is
dizer,
that to be
estarmos
aware
conscientes que não
that
estamos no centro,
the
que
world
há um
is
mundo
much
muito maior do que
larger,
conhecemos. É
and of
muito
course
difícil
it's
que a gente
very
conheça
difficult
e também
to accept that,
saber que não podemos
especially
chegar a
in
conhecer tudo
Latin
isso
America with
através
the
de
investigations.
pesquisas na América
This
Latina. Isso nos leva
makes us
a buscar
find
novas
new
fontes de
sources of
informação, talvez de
information
uma maneira mais
more
direta para a
direct,
gente, que são as pessoas
which
que moram
refers to the
nessas
people
comunidades,
that live
inclusive as
there, and also
técnicas
the
construtivas, aquelas
constructive
que nós mostramos algumas
techniques.
vezes. Há
There's
pouca
very little
bibliografia sobre isso, há pouco
bibliography, very
registro de
few
pesquisa sobre
registrations.
esse tema. Mas o
So the
conhecimento
knowledge
está
is
dentro dessas
in
comunidades
these
e foi
communities, and
transmitida
it's
via
been there
oral
for a
durante
long
muito tempo.
time. So
Então,
to
colaborar
collaborate with
com
the
as comunidades no
communities
trabalho é
is
uma
a
resposta
response
à
of
investigação, uma
investigation, is a
resposta à
response
falta de
to the
fontes de
lack of
informação, e através dessas
information,
coisas nós
and this is
conseguiremos
something that we compensate
coisas que
things that
partem
come from
autenticamente dos
the
recursos que encontramos
resources
no local e
in situ,
tratam do conhecimento que
and comes
vem
from the knowledge
das
that we have.
comunidades.
So
eu acho que assim fica mais clara
makes the
a questão
questions
sobre
clearer where
aonde
we're
que
moving
a gente está
towards
indo e por que a gente está
and
caminhando nessa direção.
the
E também as implicações
implications that
que
these
essas
decisions
decisões
have.
acabam levando.
Sim, claro. Quem ouve a sua
when one listens to what you say, we notice the respect that you have for the knowledge of the other person. The architect retains the knowledge, but he's not the only one. So the collaboration issue between several types of knowledge to reach a common knowledge. I've received 2 questions that have to do with the inclusion of the user ever since the beginning of the project, the recovery of the techniques, the building local techniques, and one of the ways to get a dignified place to live. Vidal also reminds us that one of the goals of the sustainable development is of 11.3 is the issue of increasing urbanization, urbanization, and the capacity for planning, for participative planning, integrated and sustainable. So the world there's a world of life happening, and the architect is one of the actors, but he's not the only actor. And this issue of development, having in mind the incorporation of this urbanization of more areas and to work with the community, this is fundamental due to when we see the new architect that is surfacing. Would you like to comment on these questions?
Eu pensei que o professor fosse falar, o Luiz Alberto, professor. Bom, vamos lá.
Well, for me,
para mim, muitas vezes, eu acredito que a importância desse tipo de arquitetura
that you're talking about in the
sobre a
questions
qual
is
as perguntas
underestimated.
envolvem está
I think that
subestimada.
it's underestimated.
Eu acho que está subestimado
due to the
devido também certo eurocentrismo na educação.
Eurocentrism and a different avalanche of preferences
muito
much
maiores
larger that we receive during our
durante nosso
academic
processo
process
acadêmico
that
que
comes
vem
from
de lugares que são bastante
far away
distantes.
places. It's something that
essas referências não têm nada de normal, elas estão em desequilíbrio com relação aos conhecimentos que nós desenvolvemos nos nossos próprios lugares e dos quais nós não nos apropriamos inteiramente. Às vezes, teria que pensar sobre os desafios que a gente coloca a nós mesmos perante nós mesmos no nosso trabalho, nos grupos dos quais participamos. A gente teria que pensar, por exemplo, num aeroporto construindo de terra. Será que teria como imaginar uma infraestrutura totalmente contemporânea e totalmente urbana, com materiais que sejam menos agressivos ou que venham de outras arquiteturas que podemos utilizar? Entendemos os limites que um ou outro pode ter, mas também a gente entende que os potenciais não estão desenvolvidos e estão
that have
pouco
not been
explorados e
explored and that are
subestimados,
very
a partir da
underestimated.
gente mesmo, principalmente.
The inclusion of sustainability as a guideline for the initiatives of urbanism and architecture, this comes fundamented on a characteristic that cities have. When cities grow, they make it grows faster, and the generation of wealth, the generation of innovation, generation of jobs, crime, traffic, drug trafficking. So cities are super linear in this sense. So this capacity of the cities needing less materials to produce a better distribution or a better approach and use of these resources is something that we'll need more and more. So I think that cities will have to become thermodynamic devices that are more equal and easier and consuming less resources, converting in a more efficient way these resources in goods and utensils, distribute the resources in a better manner, less waste, and working appropriately with this waste. So whatever the mechanisms are, whatever the means are that architects and people work with this, for sure these new standards will have to be incorporated because they are determined by what is not negotiable. The inflexible laws of physics, chemistry, biology. There's no negotiation, right, with these laws. So the horizon of sustainability is the horizon of the living together, of us with the other beings, the other organisms, with our past history, with the diversity in us. This is what cities will have to incorporate more and more, and they'll be more and more affirmative. I have a question for Professor Luis Alberto because I'm interested in what you said, and I wanted to ask him, how do you see these two perspectives of sustainability which take place in the world of architecture? Because when you see, when you look at the world of architecture in general, through this discourse, you normally tend to sustainability architects building new cities in China or large cultural in many places of the world, and everything has the brand of sustainability. So it seems to me, I don't know if I'm being superficial or, but this sustainability comes from the development of technology, which is more and more advanced, more and more efficient, and with high power and energy costs for the production, and with a more primitive production. So perhaps this production moves one step back. Things that different aspects, things that come into chalk with each other. How do you see all of this? Well, before you answer, I would like to there's a question from Antonio Luis Barbosa. He's an architect from Rio, and he asks if this chaos, these changes that are all taking place, if this is going to generate a revision of all the paradigms, not only of, but also in life in general. I think this completes in a certain way this issue that Esteban mentioned. Esteban, thank you very much for the question. It's difficult. I see two routes which are going to be in conflict, and they're also going to cooperate. One is what I'm going to call industrial scale. So you minimize costs with large structures, mobilizing resources with large buildings. This is one way of producing and getting a result that will be adequate for certain environmental circumstances. On the other hand, the recovery of these ancestral technologies, the original peoples, they have another way, they fundament another way of living. So it's when the environment becomes family, becomes a relative. So a river, for example, that changes course is a river that has become crooked, if you like. So the straight line of the river becomes something different. So the flow of a rectified river is a flow that does not respect the sedimentations, as sedimentation flow where it lays its sediments on the banks. So the type of time that a rectified river brings, it is in contrast with a river full of meanders that we're used to for many, many years. So the ancestral ways of building, adobe, etc., so many others, these cannot ambition to have the scale of what I'm talking about, which we call industrial scale, but on the other hand, they attend to a series of expectations that are good for us to transit through these turbulent times, because in relation to the second question, no aspect of human existence will be indifferent to the large transformations we are already going through. For example, the pandemic. In 3 months, he gives an example, going from one organism to another. He's talking about the virus that distributed itself, and in 3 months, the crazy machine of global capitalism was detained. This was something totally not foreseeable. So our lives were totally modified, and they still are modified. And this is just a tidbit of the alterations related to the climate, environmental, biodiversity that are coming along. And the macro scale, minor scale, and everything is going to be, all of this is going to be necessary. One thing won't exclude another. There might be conflicts at a certain moment. Everything becomes very, very instigating, but unfortunately, we are close to our time. We have a rigid limit to respect. We are receiving a series of questions, but we must reach we must reach the end of our talk. So I would say that we need
nossos cumprimentos de cada dos nossos palestrantes, as nossas palavras, o nosso recado dentro desse mundo de mudanças.
Give our message in this world of change, of what we are going to leave for all this contribution. I would ask Esteban, please, to talk for 5 minutes, a complementary talk. And I would also suggest the young architects, the students that are present here, which are the qualities of this architect that will exist in this moment of transition. And then Luis will be able to give his final comments. There was a talk which actually was something very important that you said in your lecture, referring to the fact that there are a lot of roots, there are a lot of possible futures, if you like, but all of them have to do with change. None of them have to do with continuity. This is something that I felt like printing, because it shows that this state of emerging changes that are taking place. So I would very much like to talk about these last two lectures, so that after this we will reach the end. And if there are other issues or questions, please insert them in the chat so that we can conclude. Well, for me, it is very clear, and it impacts me one way or another, what we've been talking about, the conclusions of Professor Alberto, that what we're going through, and that the humanity has never been faced with something similar. So we see that especially among the young people, and especially to understand that we're going to need the knowledge that we have accumulated up to now as humanity, but also at the same time, we're going to have to do different things. We're not going to be able to do the same as we did, and we won't be able to measure the standards that we used up to now as the professions that we use, which are the intimate issues that move us and impulse us towards the ambitions that we have. I think it will be a mixture of new ways, and not be afraid to make mistakes, because we are in search of something that we have not found up to now. So I think that's more or less it. And that is something that we need. We have to be in a constant state of curiosity. And thank you very much for your time. And it is a pleasure to be with you guys. Beautiful words, Esteban. I had the opportunity to work with Oscar Niemeyer from 90 to 100 years. And at the end of this part of his life, he had a project. This project was one of the 40 projects of architecture that he did in these 10 years. So I had the opportunity of introducing Calatrava to Niemeyer, and Calatrava gave him a book with all the things that he'd done. Oscar liked it a lot and gave him another book of 14 projects he'd done from 90 to 100 years old. And Calatrava was totally open-mouthed. And at the end of his life, he had a goal, which was to create the Niemeyer Institute of Architecture and Humanities, because he understood that the architect needs to be knowledgeable of humanities. And this includes languages, techniques, sciences, knowledge, history, narratives, everything that has to do with culture. And therefore, everything that has to do with the fundamentals of culture, which is nature. We're inheritors of what dissociates nature and culture, understanding culture as a flourishing. So once more, it's a formation that emerges of the flows of nature. So this idea that architects, young architects, should be humanists for anything, pay attention, appreciate the human. I think this is a horizon, a guideline that every young architect needs to be aware of. So that we can navigate in these turbulent times, in these tempestuous times that are going to open up to us while we're going through the Africas or the Americas of tomorrow, the different parts of the globe, the unknown of tomorrow. We are in this journey and we need all these resources to navigate well. So that's what I wanted to give you this information about Dr. Oscar Niemeyer. Well, thank you very much. That's excellent. I was listening to a lecture recently of a historian where they were questioning what were the abilities of the professionals of this new dawn and what needs to be taught to students. And he said, I don't have the answer because the changes are going to be so quick that they will require that every professional reinvent themselves, learn new things, and have a new view of experiences in a very flexible way. This word flexible was one of the main points. I don't know what has to be taught, but I know that we have to reinvent ourselves many times in the future. I would like to thank enormously all our guests, Steven Benavides, Luiz Alberto Rivera, excellent debate, excellent lecture. Edgardo now is saying that it was very enriching, this point of the new technologies comparing to the ancestral techniques, and this made him very everything that's being mentioned is very, very positive. And then I would like to move towards the end, reminding you that this content is going to be accessible. Besides this, we have 30 roundtables, 12 debates, and archi-talks of the largest specialists in architects and urbanism in the world. And to receive and access all this content, you have to register in the 27th World Congress in the UIA2021RIO. Besides getting to know the professionals' experience and watching and listening to the best names of global architecture, you will have space for discussion, network activities, access to the content, and international prizes and rewards related to architecture and to the topics of cities. You will also have access to a huge base of knowledge, and you'll have this for 2 years. So this is what we're mentioning here of reinventing a good base is here in this panel of the Congress. There is a discount for those of you who join the Congress during these next days of 10%, and you will be able to www.UIA21 hash, so of architects. So we will see each other in other activities of this Congress. I thank you enormously, all of those who have followed us. I thank all our speakers. Have a wonderful day, and I wish you all an excellent week of work.
Olá, pessoal, estamos indo para o encerramento aqui.
Okay, folks, we are going to end now. I think everyone is finishing. Don't forget to register in the Congress and new talks.
Algumas novidades. Uma delas é que ele vai ser 100% digital e com muita interatividade. A outra é que parte da programação vai ficar disponível gratuitamente para você conhecer o universo de informações acessível aos congressistas. A plataforma dos congressistas é o lugar que concentra todo o conteúdo do congresso. Lá vão ter debates mensais que vão ser publicados, além de um espaço especial feito para a interação entre os congressistas de diferentes culturas e nacionalidades.
Além de conhecer as experiências de mais de 100 profissionais do mundo inteiro e assistir aos maiores nomes da arquitetura global, os congressistas têm também espaços para discussão, atividades de networking, acesso ao conteúdo de concursos, prêmios internacionais, eventos culturais e artísticos relacionados à arquitetura e ao tema das cidades.
Todo esse conteúdo disponibilizado na plataforma exclusiva dos congressistas vai ficar à disposição durante 2 anos para poder ser consultado.
E o melhor? Tudo isso por um valor especial. Só essa semana, você consegue um desconto exclusivo no ingresso. Basta digitar o código que aparece aqui nesse vídeo e garantir seu desconto especial. Aproveite e faça logo sua inscrição com esse preço promocional. Não deixa para depois, porque a promoção é por tempo limitado. Garanta já a sua vaga e venha discutir e propor conosco soluções para cidades melhores para todos e todas.
Então vamos conversar sobre arquitetura e cidade? Rola a página para baixo para você ter mais informação sobre a promoção e as formas de inscrição. Até mais!